Okay, and welcome back, everyone, to the podcast. Today, I am joined by Sean from Canopy Craft, and this one just feels so perfect because you're using a lot of the same materials that I teach with when we're training on ropes courses. So there was a lot of like, oh, this feels like an easy jump for me going from the work I do to say, like, I've got a yard and I've got some trees. Let me figure out a tree net. The process I will say for a beginner is then you do Google searches and you attempt to find any video or anything that might show you something about what to do, the good and the bad of that. And fortunately, I have found Sean and through other people sharing me videos of yours and being able to see enough that I thought, oh, I can make that leap. In this episode, we're going to talk to Sean about this and the relationship between our two worlds. And then towards the end, I'm going to show Sean a video of my current tree net, and I've asked him to brutally critique it. But first, Sean, I'm going to throw straight to you in terms of just how did you end up getting into tree net crafting and then end up building Canopy Craft?
So basically, I mean, the way I was first introduced to tree nets were wild tree nets. I grew up in California in Marin, which is north of San Francisco. There's a whole underground culture here that I first found out about in high school, like the end of high school, where someone would be like, "Oh, there's this cool spot out in the woods, this amazing viewpoint. You got to go." And we would go up there and they'd show you like the secret spot and we just hang out there for hours, like perched over the ocean. Super beautiful. Felt like a little secret world up there. We didn't know exactly who made it too. So it was kind of part of the lore, the mystery. Like no one really knew where this came from. No one knew how to do it. There wasn't that much info about it online at the time that we knew about. I'm sure there was stuff. And then a friend kind of attempted it, made some sloppy ones. I tried to make one in high school with my friends. We did a horrible job. Came back the next day, it was completely loose. And they're like, "What the hell?" We nearly fell out of the tree. All that stuff. But it kind of embedded in me an interest in it. And then I went and had a whole career in Hollywood. I was like an assistant, PA, just like that kind of thing, trying to get into film. But then during COVID, of course, during COVID, I came back home. A lot of my friends came back home as well. And we just had all this time. Being outside was kind of the place to be. Otherwise, you were just stuck inside. So we explored those nets, tried to find some other ones just based on Instagram pictures. Like, I know that tree or I know that hill in the background from this friend of a friend of a friend. And maybe we can find that. And it was like a scavenger hunt, which was really fun. But eventually we ran out of spots for that. So the next logical step was, of course, can we make one? And I was the only one of my friends who had the patience to do it. And because we had no idea where to start. And like online at that time, this was COVID, like 2020, the summer of 2020, 6 years ago at this point. I couldn't find anything online. There was like one eHow or WikiHow article that was like very
Yep.
simple, which was like find tree, put rope around tree, weave middle, done. Like something like
Yeah.
that. But that at least planted the idea of like, okay, a perimeter. Like we have a central, like a perimeter, and then we weave within that once it's tight. So that at least gave a starting point. And it's actually funny because in the online course, I start people out the same exact way I kind of figured out how to do it, which was on an upside down table. So I actually have pictures. Well, first I tried it with stakes in the ground. That didn't really work that well because they'd flopped over in the lawn. But of like a stool turned upside down with a little like twine net in there, and that's when I kind of figured out how the patterns worked. And then I tried some in the trees behind my house, made some there, and then just kept making nets. I had like a really cool. I mean, I didn't admit this at the beginning when I had my business, but I don't think it matters now. It's gone. But a cool like secret net by the Golden Gate Bridge that got pretty popular. So that was pretty magical to like have put it there and then show my friends, and then I'm sure friend of a friend, word of mouth, whatever, leave a little notebook. That's what all the other people did. I'm not that original with that idea. You would see like people would leave notes about, I don't know, stick in there or what a magical spot or just finished a mushroom trip or this is like the safe space sanctuary for me or I love my friends or I don't know, whatever. It's super magical. And I have pictures of all that on my phone. And that was awesome. Eventually did some for friends on private properties and then eventually got paid to just for the materials to do them and then eventually got paid to actually do them. And that's how I got into like the paid installation stuff that I do now. I did some installations for a little while. And then on Instagram, I was like, well, there's no info on how to do this. So I'm just gonna make like a quick little tutorial. And so I posted the video, totally blew up, which was crazy. I was like, whoa, this is insane. And I got a bunch of interest there. And then I posted another video like a week later about like trying to make this net share prototype. And then that blew up like even more. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I need to like monetize this so I don't have to keep working my like day job like a PA. And so that basically started me teaching. And then I thought I need to like monetize this in some way and like so that I can live off of this and just keep doing this. So then I decided to make the online course. I was in a race to the death with TreeNet Collective because they are making their online course at the same time. We're actually like we're friends. It's not like a super competitive thing, but I was kind of motivated, like, oh, I got to beat them out of the gate on this one because I know they were working on it. And so I shot it all myself in like maybe 5 days of shooting, and then edited it. Like I did it actually pretty fast in hindsight over like a month, and released it, and that sold pretty well. And then yeah, that's how I got into teaching.
Wonder if this is true as you witness it. Like some of the information is a little bit was gate kept or kept from people. Like you didn't know who built
1000%.
something at first,
Yeah,
and now it's sort
totally.
of like opening up to being like, let's make this so that other people can access it, because it in its basic form, it isn't something that like someone couldn't do. It's just
Mm.
the knowledge isn't there. It's all, to an extent it feels like, and I'm a bit of a nerd with this. I studied magic. Like you could never find out how a trick was done because people kept it to themselves. And then you started to get these people showing up who were like, I'm going to teach it. And it kind of opens it up to the world. And I don't necessarily see that as being a bad thing. What have you seen in the last few years? Because it does feel like I see more of it. Now, maybe it's my algorithm because I'm super deep
No,
into
no, I'm always getting, like, new weavers, and it's really exciting to see people picking it up. Sometimes it's like, "Okay, maybe don't, like, completely choke the tree like that, but that's alright. At least you're, like, getting outside. It's a start." Like, I totally did a horrible job first, and I feel like we still have a long way to go there. That gatekeeping thing is, like, totally the case, and, like, I've gotten a ton of flack for it myself. And I mean, growing up, it was this, like, cool underground thing, and that was the kind of the value of it, like, this secret spot. It's not on Instagram. No one's posting about this. I know people post about it now. No one's posting about this on Instagram. Like, even the fact that I mentioned that on this podcast, oh man, don't talk about it. Like, you're going to blow up the scene and ruin it. Like, there was this situation where a journalist reached out to me when I was first starting and was like, I'm already writing an article about tree nets, and this is for the SF standard. You can find it. And will you take me to some nets and just so I can get an idea and kind of write about the experience of it? And I was like, yeah, why not? The only thing is you can't show what's in the background because we know people like me would look at that and be able to find the net. And then also you can't give any clues whatsoever. No foreground, no background, just literally the net in a tree. And he totally abided by that, but I still got tons of for that from the net community and my friends. Like, this was our cool Marin thing. Like, this was our thing. And then you're going to like ruin it by spreading it with the whole world. It's like all these crafts, like I'm sure rock climbing, mountain biking, when
Mhm.
there was the time I was like, oh, it used to be so cool. And now it's so corporate and lame and
Yep,
commercial.
yep.
So I think there was that kind of fear there. And it was cool because it was like our own space. So the idea to make a business out of it definitely created a lot of that tension. But I mean, I obviously wasn't the first one there. There's tons of other people who came before me, or at least a few that I know of: TreeNet Willie, Charlie's Webs, TreeNet Studio, and then Sarah Weaver, so DreamNet. So there's like a ton of people that came before me, but still in trying to make it a business and then sell it and advertise it, I ran into some tension right there. But it's been kind of an interesting thing in the whole process. Like, now I totally own it and I want to make it more accessible. And I believe that it is best spread to a lot of people, but there's a ton of tension, no
Yeah.
pun intended, with like old weavers and like the new crop, and like they don't even care about the trees and they're being totally reckless, or like they're ruining the craft. We just see people doing backflips on Instagram or these crazy colorful patterns, but you're missing like the point, which is the bee in the trees.
Let's get into the teaching. You moved into the online stuff, and then you started doing these clinics.
I like teaching a lot, and the reason I got into it, of course, I just got into it because the algorithm was like, people like this. But I already did teaching before this when I worked in Hollywood. I was teaching assistants, training them, and it was actually I love that aspect of like standardizing something and making it accessible. So like breaking down this demystifying, it's funny how you connect the dots afterwards. Like you would think there'd be no connection, but that experience I built like the whole manual for the company. This is how every system works, standardizing it so it's easy and transferable, and like basically like taming the Wild West. I always thought it was fun, and it's funny how I ended up doing that with tree nets or my own version of it. Of course, there are other people in this space as well doing similar things, but that's something that I got kind of into with it. But eventually, I was just making these videos at home, and I'm like, this is the most depressing thing ever because I'm just going to be making videos for people I never meet. And then money will just be sent to me on the internet so I can keep making videos in my bedroom. I'm like, this sucks. But I'm like, I love helping people. This feels like a one way thing. Like, I just give so much and I never actually get to interact with them. That's kind of lame. So, that's kind of what spurred the in person teaching, the clinics, like you said. And teaching it is way different than doing it. Why do you do this? Why do you do that? Why do you do this? Why do you do that? And I'm just like, oh my God, I actually have no idea why I do this. Like, and now it's like everything has to have an explanation. Everything has to have like some sort of an internal logic. You can't just say, because I said so. That's why. Like, that's an unacceptable. Like, if I were like a student, especially if I bought an online course and paid good money for it, and I'm watching this video where I'm not actually talking to them one to one, a pre recorded video, you have to have some explanation for it, which, at the beginning, basically I have to define everything. And I kind of like that process and I like what it brings out of me. It kind of challenges me to really think about like, why am I doing this? Why do I do that? Why do I do this? And I think that's really special. But then later on, when I started getting into like more advanced weaving concepts, I realized like a lot of this actually can't be taught, which is the horrible thing to say if I'm trying to like sell courses. But like that's kind of the beauty of it. So then I took all these workarounds, like I would do time lapses with commentary, which I have in the advanced weaving course, just kind of explaining my process, but encouraging people to improvise with it. So that's sort of like improvisation with like a recipe was the challenge of creating those classes. And then in person, it's really cool to see that dynamic play out in real time because, like, at the beginning, of course, it's all technical. It's all about like the people being there outside in person, having a good time, bonding over this shared project. Of course, I want to like keep the quality high, but I also don't want to like be such a perfectionist that I'm getting frustrated and I'm ruining their experience of it. And like a lot of it has been like kind of actually accepting when it falls short of the mark because it's better that they have the experience or that they make the mistake and see how it improves later than like me just going, nope, don't do that. Nope, don't do that. No, 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 don't do that. Wrong, 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 wrong. Like people don't like it. The question is when to chime in versus when to just let them make the mistake.
I can imagine like the opposite of that would be like someone's made a net and you're just coming through and cutting it. Like, no, this is
Yeah.
bad. It's just cutting the net.
Okay, wait, I
I
do
just
do that
the
sometimes, but it's
okay.
I hope I do it in a nice way. I'm like,
Yeah.
because the question is like,
Yeah.
what is something that's actually going to be unsafe versus
Mm.
like cosmetic? I can live with it being cosmetically bad, but if it's going to be unsafe or people could trip on it or whatever, then it obviously has to be addressed in that moment. So sometimes it's like, we need to
Yeah.
fix
You've
this.
got it.
I'm so sorry, but you had the experience and it's really easy to
it
fix.
Something you referenced and I'm intrigued about. You've started building these for other people. So you're getting paid gigs to build these. And you referenced the idea of standardization. What standards are there any? Are there current standards that you're having to work with when it comes to fall protection?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The thing with tree nets is we're still in the Wild West right now. So, and that makes me nervous. When I first started, I didn't care about this.
Yeah.
Now I care about
Yeah.
this. It's not because anyone got hurt, but it's because I preemptively worry about these things because, that could, as soon as people like lose confidence in tree nets, I mean, that's the end. I mean, I spent the longest time reassuring everyone that it's safe at the beginning because that was the hardest sell. Now it feels like people kind of like know it. Like when they already won a net, they're already familiar with the idea. At first, that wasn't the case. But standardization for me is just coming from teaching. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know if this supplier for bolts is the best one or consistent. I don't know. You know what I mean? There's still like a lot of unknowns. And that's why when I actually look at something like ropes courses, I forget the name of whatever the certification
Yeah.
thing you
ACCT.
guys,
It's
yeah,
called
that's it.
Association for Challenge Course Technology. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that, like, at this point, I'm like, "Oh, that's the dream," and it's funny how far I've come in that because it's like, I get excited about, "Oh, we can standardize it, and we can make it safe, and we can tell everyone exactly what to use." Because online, people seem to, there's just like, "No, I heard this is the best. No, I heard this is the best. No, I thought that was the best." And, I mean, I tell them with my courses and stuff, but I feel like I don't know if the Weavers came together, people who have companies and stuff, and we kind of set these standards that would go a long way. And then also kind of using resources to build out all this infrastructure so everyone has access to the safest things and like the safest practices. And then also like testing a lot of this stuff. I mean, there are some tests like how not to highline, did some stuff testing the forces on tree nets, but that was more like a space net. Anyways, there's just tons of stuff that I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement, and it's something I wanna work on, but it's just me right now. I'd love to have a collaborator to work on this, but the question is, like, how do you do all these projects and still make money?
This is like a lead into like the video I'm going to share, but like if someone was to start, right, we've talked a lot of like the philosophy of it. If like someone wanted to just start and we're hearing this and like intrigued about it, building a net on their own property or something like that. The first thing I'm going to say is go to Canopy Craft, and the website is canopycraft.thinkifc.com.
Yeah, like
So
terrific
that's,
Think Cafe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So goes to that would be the initial thing to find all the information. What are the tools? Because I think that people can fall into this very quickly and make mistakes early on. I know I did. As an example, my tip that I will throw out, if anyone cares about my tips from my own experience, is you need more than 100 feet of paracord. I bought like 100 feet increments, and I wish I'd have just gone ahead and bought more because I didn't realize how much you would need. And I couldn't really find that much information of how much I might need. So, what would be like the initial stuff that if people were to buy, maybe what they should buy, and what would be your go-to set to say, like, this would be your starter kit? What do you need?
Yeah, totally. So, like, to start out, 150 feet of rope, that's like a very standard amount, or like 50 meters that people sell, and then 1,000
Static, dynamic? What's your
static, yeah.
static? Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So static rope, everyone's like, which one's better in the sun? Polyester, nylon. They both seem to do great, although nylon is more common. I have an interview. I sent it out in one of my newsletters, like an interview with the rope and paracord manufacturer that I use, and then also like have an affiliate link for. And they were saying that, yeah, they're basically comparable, but nylon is just more standard for paracord, even though, once again, paracord is not actually standardized, even though they say type 3, there's no like certificate or anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyways, that brings us on to where to actually buy them from. I have a link
Yeah,
for
I'll stick
that
it in the
page.
description
Yeah.
of this episode. Yeah.
And so there I curated paracord that I like and rope that I like. It's both made in the US. It's 550 paracord, so it has a 550-pound breaking strength or tensile strength. So what's great about static versus dynamic when it comes to tree nets is dynamic's a little bit stretchy. So as you're weaving, you make your perimeter tight, but it can still pull in because dynamic is a little stretchier. That makes it harder to tension the net because it's like you're pulling off of a moving target. So if you think like pulling tension from one side of the net to the other, and you start at this tension, and then as you're weaving, the whole perimeter is moving in and in and in a little bit as it gains tension, then where you first wove will go loose and the new spot will go tight and you get this like uneven tension. Is really frustrating. So that's why static rope is a little bit better than dynamic. It's not like if you only have dynamic and you want to do a little trial run at waist height, I'd say go for it. That's how I learned. Like it's not the end of the world. Like if cost is the problem there, but for like bigger builds, static is definitely a good idea, especially if you have long spans, like beyond 5 feet.
All right, here we go.
Here we
So
go.
it's
Drum
it's a
roll.
minute it's a minute video. I'll let you just watch it through, and
Yeah.
then you can tell me where I can improve upon it and what I need to do because you'll see I've started off a perimeter for the next layer.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
So you can see, right? I've already started bad. This is dynamic rope. I'm going for a thin tree. Let me press play. What I'm showing for people who aren't seeing this in video, as Sean is watching it, I've gone for. There's so many different colors. There's a different like. I've started this idea of going in a triangular back and forth to make a structure. I'm not sold on that as a structure point. And what we're looking at now is the perimeter. There's now big gaps. I'm pointing at the
Mm.
gaps because I struggle to fill in gaps where in this triangle shape, that was formed as it got close to the big
Yeah, it's
tree.
irregular.
I really am struggling, and I still am struggling. I've like bought more cord. This I'm showing is stable climb up because I work at a ropes course, so I have plenty of that stuff to climb into it. This is what I call the messy middle, and that's where I'm showing that. Like, as I started off this idea I'm going to do a chaos method, which is just go everywhere, and then I didn't like that. You can see it's very narrow. I've got a layer above. This is static rope. I feel like I've got tension good. That's what I'm going to start at some point.
Okay,
Okay,
so that's the higher level there. All right.
that's the higher level. All right.
So
What can I do?
all right, so just looking at, I mean, that tree right there on the left side in this video, I don't know, what is that, like 5 inches, 6 inches?
Yeah,
Not even. That might even be.
very skinny birch.
That's probably, yeah, not a good idea to use as an anchor point. Or it's pushing it. It's pushing it. But for practicing, whatever, it's totally fine. Or like leaving it up for a
Like,
summer,
I've
whatever.
gone these trees now for the new stuff. You can see, like, I've gone for bigger tree.
Yeah, I
Like,
think it's
I've
better to
made
go
a
for
new
like
perimeter
fewer,
in a different spot.
more mature anchor points rather than a gajillion like kind of questionable ones, especially in like a dense forest like this. But as far as like the actual weave goes, well, first of all, do you use a double fisherman's for the perimeter right there?
I used a double fisherman's in the perimeter. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I use double fisherman's to like connect two pieces of paracord together when I want to extend a
yeah.
piece and I run out. But when it comes to the perimeter, I actually like to use a figure eight bend just because I find it really hard to tension the double fisherman's right there because the way it works, it's like cinches together. So even if you tie it super tight, you're always going to have it cinch and then pull the tension out in the last second. So you're going to lose some tension
Okay.
there. But like a figure eight is like easy to pull the tension out of. You can't perfectly get all the slack out of it once you tension it with the prusik, but you can get a lot more than with a double fisherman. But for me, I'm always like overshoot with the tension with a ratchet strap, a pulley, whatever. And then you settle into the final tension once you actually release it. After you've tensioned it, I do something also called pre-tensioning it because the goal is to like get the perimeter to the tightest maximum tension point, like where you hope it will end up with the net before you start weaving, so that that doesn't happen while weaving. And I do that with like paracord and carabiners, or I just can even roll paracord off the perimeter. Although I do that enough, and you would break your perimeter. So be careful with that. Or you could just use a ratchet or something to kind of pin it in this tight spot so that you have like a solid edge to work off of. And it's just not slowly creeping into the center as you keep weaving your net. So that's something you could try right there. So get it as tight as possible. Use the figure eight bend. And then once you have it super tight, then you do the pre-tension with the different colors so you don't actually weave onto it, a paracord, or you can use a ratchet strap or any sort of pulley. It sounds like you have a setup with the prosthetics just like that, pulling the perimeter in before you weave. And then once that goes loose, as you're weaving, you can just take it off. That'll do 80% of the tensioning before you even start weaving. It's the hard thing is you're taking like a perfect grid and we're trying to superimpose it onto this organic shape. It's not just a triangle, it's a triangle with like curved edges, and that can be pretty challenging. But then the upside of it is that it's easier when you're learning because the rules are more cut and dry. Like just go across here, finish this, then you know when you're done. Chaos pattern is a little different. Some people respond to that better. Just depends on the type of person. I never know which pattern is easier to start with. I've tried both. I keep switching, and I can never decide. But for this triangle specifically, I think the best pattern for this would be like strips, which is something I talk about, or I think Trina Willie something similar. He called it like yoga pants, where you kind of are like printing like small grid chunks over and over again and like stacking it up. And that kind of like works with the shape of the triangle a little bit better because it can react to different like widths without having to be perfect. So let's just say you're doing the whole thing as a grid. If you set one span in one direction and you go like clove hitch or constrictor and then cow hitch on the other side or clove hitch, then you're basically setting the distance. So you're setting the distance, like let's say this is 2 feet. And then as the perimeter pulls in, 2 feet for a 2 foot distance is tight. 2 feet for a 1.8 foot difference is loose. And when it comes to like weaving a grid, I tell people in the course to have like faith in the process because it's always like the leading edge It's always going to make the lines after it go loose. But if you do enough wraps over and over and over again, it'll add in all these little like detours because every time you do a double wrap on the paracord, it adds length to whatever you're crossing over because, the shortest distance is a straight line. So you just add in all these wraps and that slowly ratchets down the tension. So even though you're not feeling confident about this net right here, or like the pattern, like, oh, some parts are loose, you could keep adding paracord, like keep adding pass and in between to like close those gaps. And every single time it's going to make it tighter and tighter and tighter. And then hopefully you wouldn't have set your perimeter so loose that it's impossible to get it to be tight. Because eventually the perimeter can only pull in so much with the finite amount of rope that you set in it with the double fisherman at the start.
I appreciate your excitement for it. I think that the thing you're like demonstrating, the thing that you're getting excited about is like how to do stuff, how to figure it out. That's the stuff I'm also appreciating in it. I feel like I'm learning and growing through a process. And for someone who teaches adventure ed, and I'm trying to teach that to others, it's a nice perspective for me to be rolling into the position of novice or student again and having to realize, oh, if I'm trying to get other people involved in something like learning for the first time, there is that excitement that you feed off others in, and that's certainly what you probably get from your clinics as well. Like seeing people get
Mhm.
excited about it reaffirms your own excitement for it. And I can
Yeah.
certainly sense that as we talk about this more, of like you sort of light up when it's coming to a point of like the problem solving element of it, which is it's fun to observe.
And if I had any advice, like on like a theoretical level, I would say it's just like at this point, experiment and like lean into the experimental aspect of it. Like it's not about getting the pattern perfect. It's more about seeing if I try it this way versus that way, what if I wrap this? Does that look cool? Does this look bad? Does it make it tighter? Does this make it looser? Like I think all of that is super cool. And I wouldn't consider it like a recipe, like you just have to follow the recipe. And then if you mess it up by the end, it'll taste bad or something. I think now that you have the bones in place, you have a tight perimeter, or maybe on the next one, you have a tight perimeter, and you're doing it safely with the right materials. And also, we could talk about, you know, ways to be a little more conscientious about how you anchor it to the trees, but that's fine. As long as you have all that in place when it comes to the weave, it's pretty hard to mess it up. So I don't know. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's my advice. Like if it was perfect, a robot could have made it. Like they sell
It's
those volleyball nets or catamaran nets
yeah.
online. That's not
Yeah. Just
something to aspire to. Like
no.
that's how I see
And
it.
I think that that's the part of this that is the most enjoyable. It's the creating the part. Like I've got to an end product. It's cool to see the end product. I know the hours I put into it.
Mhm.
And I think that's the thing. It's like the cliche term, but it's the journey, not the destination, right? It's the how did we get there? That's the fun
Yeah,
part. So
totally, totally.
thank you, Sean, for chatting about this and joining us on the podcast. I'm going to put all of the links to Sean's stuff, Canopy Craft, and all of the other things in the description. So please feel free to check that out. And thank you, Sean.
Thank you.